What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. Welcome back, everybody. Season 3 of this show. Steven, how are you doing, bud?
I am very good. Nice week of rest last week. I was down in our, one of our favorite places, LBI, Long Beach Island, New Jersey. Took the kids down there. My wife and the kids and a couple other families had a great time on the beach, and then was able to actually perfect timing because the Saturday that we're leaving was actually the first open practice for the Jets. So I was able to snag 4 tickets, and then thanks to my friend Gus on Twitter, snag a 5th. He gave me one, so my whole family of 5 could go. Hit up practice on the way back. It was a blast. It cut the trip, not in half, but it cut the trip down a little bit back home to Syracuse. So obviously, man, vibes are high, confidence levels high. I'm feeling good. How you doing, brother?
I'm feeling amazing, man. And we have to kick it off with the biggest news of the day. Aaron Rodgers taking a $35 million pay cut and basically is committed to 2 years with this football team. What are your initial thoughts? Because this feels a lot different than what we're used to as Jet fans.
I mean, when you look at the cap hits, right, it's I think 9 million this year and 17 or 18 in 2024. Like, it's really just insane. And it feels almost too good to be true. Like, we were waiting for this since the trade actually took place. Connor Hughes felt like had the details and was like, just wait till you guys see it. You're going to be extremely impressed and shocked, honestly. And I think that was kind of undersold really by Connor. So for Aaron to come here and to take this big of a pay cut, right, to keep the door open, obviously to play year 1 and year 2, and really to understand that this is his shot at a ring, it feels surreal. So it's great. I'm excited that the details came out. I think it's better than I really anticipated. Again, having those cap hits be what they are. And then, speculation, right? You want to leave the door open for other guys. Garrett Wilson's moving from 17 to number 5. Maybe it makes room for Devontae Adams next year and the Jets go back to back and win 2 in a row. Who knows? But how does this make you feel, man? What are your thoughts?
Dude, I could be more excited. Everything has been better than I even expected because typically, the vibes are always high going into a season, and then something usually happens that usually takes the wind out of our sails, to quote you. But man, like, this guy wants to be here. Like, everyone's like, oh, he's selfish. He doesn't care about anything else but himself. Dude, everything he's been saying, and even his actions now that you're seeing, he's willing to take $35 million less. That's not nothing. It's not like he took like a $2 million pay cut, which is typically what you see from these types of restructures. Dude, it is unbelievable. And the fact that we're, most likely going to have him for 2 years and maybe longer, who knows what happens. It's just money, man. I'm so excited. And we'll definitely have to talk a little bit about what we saw from him because you and I were both at camp actually on Saturday. Mm-hmm. I was impressed, man. I mean, like, it's obviously it was padless practice and now the pads are on, but just watching what he could do with his arm, like the flick of a wrist, watching him with like the nets and seeing what he was doing compared to Zach, Boyle, and Shrevler. The guy's just throwing dart after dart after dart. He's unbelievable, man. I loved it. What did you think?
I really came away impressed. And going back to the pay cut and just kind of everything this offseason, you do as a Jets fan, you start to wait for like whatever bad is going to come, but it really feels kind of like they're walking on water right now and like they can do no wrong. There's just a lot of things that are going their way. And I feel like a lot of what they've done this offseason and really, since the Rodgers trade has just kind of went well, right? I think everything that Rodgers has done, everything he said, we talked about it the last time we were live, is, going to the Rangers games, going to the Knicks games, making himself present at OTAs, like all this stuff. And then really you see like the video with him and Sauce and him getting the chain. It just feels like everybody is really embracing this and everything is going in the Jets' favor right now and kind of like they can do no wrong. So I just love the vibes that are around this organization right now, and it feels different than it normally does, and what obviously you're used to as a Jets fan. But what I saw on Saturday, I mean, typically, you kind of expect the defense to be ahead of the offense, and I didn't really see that. I thought from what we heard from the first few days of practice until people showed up on Saturday was that was the case, but I think it flipped a bit on Saturday where you saw Rodgers throwing darts. You saw Rodgers fine. Not so much Garrett Wilson, but he was really on Saturday connecting with Tyler Conklin. You saw him connect with Corey Davis, which I think could end up being a pleasant surprise. Like there's not too much weight or not too much expectation on Corey Davis's shoulders this year. And maybe having a guy like Aaron Rodgers will certainly help. And then what you're seeing after that, and I know we're going to get into this in a bit, is really just Garrett Wilson taking off. I mean, this is a guy that obviously won Offensive Rookie of the Year, had 80 catches for 1,100 yards with a myriad of QBs back there. Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco. So what is he going to do with a Hall of Famer that just clearly has like the feel for the offense, the precision, like all of these skills? It's going to be next level. And it's truly so much fun to watch and see and read about every single day.
Yeah. Garrett Wilson, man, like, I don't even know like what the ceiling can be right now. Like, I don't want to put like him in the Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson category just yet, or even like, the Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chases of the world. But if he's not there, provided he stays healthy, he's going to be knocking on the door. I mean,
Absolutely.
The guy is just a freak show. Like, just watching what he could do with his body control, his ability to get open, just seeing how slippery he is. That was like the thing. Like, he made so many plays last year where you're like, wow, this guy is just so hard to tackle, and he always makes defenders miss. And now that he has a Hall of Fame quarterback who's going to figure out to put the ball right where it needs to be for him, it's just like a dream come true for us. Because think about it, like, as Jet fans, when was the last time we drafted a receiver that high that actually ended up being a really good player? I mean, I guess you could say Santana Moss and Keyshawn. I know that's your boy, who we've got into our arguments about over the years. So I've said he's just overrated for the draft position. Great player. I always want to be careful, but Garrett Wilson could be better than anyone we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the ceiling is like limitless for him. Like, I really don't even know how to cap it right now.
It's the thing is, like, I hate to be this guy, but it really feels like Garrett Wilson doesn't have a weakness to his game, where there were things that, listen, no shade to Santana Moss or Keyshawn Johnson at all, right? Both of them had great seasons with the Jets, but I won't say better seasons elsewhere. I think Santana did. His career was obviously longer with Washington. However, Keyshawn's top seasons were 98 and 99. But let me go past that. So Santana was great, but with the Jets, he was undersized and always had injury concerns, right? Keyshawn didn't have injury concerns, but was a big body wide receiver and was on the slower side, right? Is there really any weakness to Garrett Wilson's game? Like, when you honestly, objectively look at him, he is a precise route runner. He catches everything. He has insane body control. He obviously has speed. I mean, it's not Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle speed.
But it's speed.
It's enough speed to break away, right? So there really is no ceiling to his game. So I think when you're really looking at this from a Jets standpoint, like, yes, he very well could be the most talented and end up being the best Jets wide receiver we've ever seen. I'm not that guy. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but what we're seeing here is really teeing up for him to have a much bigger year too. And definitely, as you said, kind of be knocking on the door at least of that conversation for what, top 5, top 7 receiver in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's crazy. I mean, who knows? Like, he exceeded everyone's expectations as a rookie last year. I mean, we all were excited when they picked him. We all thought he was going to be a solid player. Nobody thought he'd be an 1,100-yard receiver, especially when you think about the quarterback play that they had.
Yeah.
The guy is a superstar in the making. And Aaron was actually talking about him in his presser today, and he just was, raving about everything about him. It's like the work ethic, the character, the ability, and also just the drive. And it's like, it's incredible. Like, as Jet fans, like, we have so much young talent across the board, but just to have, a potential superstar at one of the most important positions to really drive the success of this team, it's awesome, man. And I'm so excited to watch him in the real games, even though every day it seems like him and Rodgers are connected in some like circus play. And it's just, I look forward to it every day.
I know. And it's one of those things too. And I hate to use the cliche terms. I know people go nuts with this, but the iron sharpens iron. Like,
oh yeah.
But him going up against Sauce every day is truly that truly is what it is. And now when you throw Aaron Rodgers on the offensive side of the ball, like, that's definitely what it is. It was a different story last year with Zach Wilson and Flacco. Like, you can't tell anyone different. So how good the defense is getting, seeing this day in and day out, I think is obviously there's a story in there as well. It is really going up against the Hall of Famer every day in practice and what that yields, especially a guy that's kind of a coach on the field, installing a new offense with Hackett, like all this stuff. That's obviously going to yield benefits down the road as well for this defense, which was already a top 5 defense in the league last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing you want to point out too is, like, outside of Garrett Wilson, this offensive, like this receiving core, this tight end group is pretty deep, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Mims was a guy that everyone was like holding on to forever.
Yes,
and he's not even here anymore.
No.
Now there's a clear path for Badlands favorite Bromley to make the team, and it's just like,
or the kid Gibson. Like, you think he may stick? Like, he's got some juice, but even like having Randall Cobb is what it is, but having a guy there that's been a steady veteran that Aaron Rodgers trusts is obviously a big thing. And then you also have Corey Davis, who I talked about in the opening, as well as Alan Lazard, who's a big body, 6'5" guy that's got good hands that we haven't had in quite a while. You haven't had a big body wide receiver like that. And then you couple that with the tight end group, which I think is pretty strong. I think Conklin, we had high expectations for last year. He fell a little bit short. Had some problems with, ball security, whatever, but I think you could really see him kind of take off. I think Garrett Wilson is clear cut number one, is going to be number one in target share in this offense, no question. But I think, 2, 3, and 4 in this offense as the year kind of shakes out and progresses is kind of going to be lumped together. And definitely, you sprinkle the running backs in there too, and we'll see what it looks like. But I just think that the offensive weapons are deep across the board.
Yeah, I mean, there's really, obviously, we're all thinking about Dalvin Cook, who we'll talk about maybe a little bit later, but it's just like there's no clear area where, like, the Jets could use another body for this skill position. I mean, like, I know Connor and Joe were talking about this. Like, what are they going to do with Kuntz? Like, Kuntz is a developmental player who's like a freak show athlete who I'm sure that they want to develop over time, but he may get snatched off the practice squad. Yeah, you can, especially if they want to have Bowden, which it makes sense when you think about Rodgers' history with the Packers. They always had a guy like Kuhn and then that guy Rutkowski or whoever. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's super important to what he likes to do. And he definitely uses the fullback, at least in the pass game, a lot more than most quarterbacks do. It's kind of like the Shanahan system, what they've done, and also stuff they've done in Baltimore as well. But like, it's just crazy, man. Like, this team is just loaded everywhere. The only area that I have concern right now is linebacker. I just think they're a little bit short there, but we don't need to talk about that just yet because they do have 2 solid starters, but it's really the third guy that I'm a little worried about. But I do want to transition to an area that there is a lot of players, in terms of who's battling, but at the same time, we have no idea who are going to bookend. So who do you think is going to start at tackle? Because we had Mekhi Becton, who everyone thought got benched yesterday at practice, but it sounded like they were managing his reps. Who knows? It's coach speak. Things could change day to day. But, he hasn't really been playing with the ones. Then you had Dwayne Brown, who I think they're probably trying to manage him a little bit because he's 38 years old at this point. And I don't blame them. He's coming off a shoulder injury. He was really good last year when he did play. And then, you have Max Mitchell, you have Kajus, and then you also have Billy Turner. It's like, who are going to be the starting tackles on opening day? I have no idea. We know the interior, even though it could flip-flop between Tippmann and McGovern. But, like, who are these tackles going to be?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And obviously, Dwayne Brown being out for the first few practices kind of, leaves everything open to the imagination. So when you saw it, right when we were there on Saturday, it was Billy Turner starting at left tackle and Max Mitchell, starting at right tackle. So is that going to be what it is? And, who knows? I think it's still too early to tell. But when September rolls around and the first game rolls around, I got a feeling, and I go back to, and Joe and Connor talk about this all the time, is I think coaches like floors a lot more than ceilings.
They do.
When it's all said and done, I think you're going to see Dwayne Brown at left tackle and Max Mitchell at right. And I think, that's good. I mean, Mekhi Becton, having to work and earn his spot on the right side, I think is a good thing. But ultimately, I think that from what we're hearing kind of early on in camp is that, some people are blowing by him. He's not really doing that. He's in great shape. Obviously, he looks amazing, which credit to him. But you still got to perform on the field. So I just think what Max Mitchell did last year, kind of an emergency, really. And the fact that he exceeded expectations, I think the coach is going to like that more. So I think it shakes out with Dwayne Brown on the left and Max Mitchell on the right. What do you think, brother?
Yeah, I feel similarly. It's so hard to predict. There's so much time left in the preseason. And obviously the Hall of Fame game is a week from, I guess, depending on when you're listening to this, it's either a week from tomorrow or a week from today if you're listening tomorrow. So I have no idea. I mean, I could see, the staff, specifically Hackett, gravitating towards a guy like Billy Turner. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is if there's comfort. He's coached him before. He knows what to expect. I mean, that would not make us happy. Like, I think that's kind of boring, but if they feel it's a safer option because he knows the system, they can rely on him. He's a veteran. I get it. But to me, the hope would be is that Becton is, he gives up this whole, I'm a left tackle only. I want to play on the left side and, we'll convert to the right side. And Dwayne Brown wins the job with Max Mitchell being the guy who could fill in at any time. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping. But do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. I think Becton is probably going to be a reserve player unless, he just balls out the rest of the camp.
Yeah. And I mean, the dream is, right, that Becton starts on the right, that he earns the job, that he returns to form he was in 2020. And, you got him and AVT on the right side of the just pancaking guys as they clear the way for Breece and Michael Carter and Bam Knight and Izzy, right? Like that's the dream. But right now, I mean, you can't say that that's the reality because unfortunately Becton, as good as he looks, physically, he's coming back from 2 lost seasons. And right now it seems like he's kind of a turnstile, which, you're that's not going to win you the job. So you want to go start at left tackle. I mean, you're going to have tough time finding a starting spot on either side right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like I said, there's still so much time left in this training camp and obviously the preseason. We're really not going to know for a while, and that's totally fine. Hopefully, everything plays itself out. We don't have any major injuries, and we're not playing the O-line Tetris, as Connor likes to call it, throughout the season. Moving AVT to the outside, having I guess Feeney, who is not here anymore. We have Joe Tippmann to replace that amazing hair. But I just want there to be consistency. Like, think about how much shuffling there's been in the offensive line in the last 5 years. It's like continuity is so important in that position. When you think about the great Jet teams in 2009 and 2010, that was basically a stalwart for that team. Like, everyone was always playing, with the lone exception when Woody got hurt, I think at the end of the 2010 run, and Wayne Hunter came in, who we all thought was going to be good because he was solid in the playoffs. Who ended up being one of the biggest disasters we've ever seen at the right side. Yeah. But it just goes to show you offensive line is so important. And I really hope the Jets carry as many as they can because we need to have depth there based on what we've seen with this team in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And I mean, give credit to Douglas and Saleh because I really feel like they've beefed up the trenches. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out with both offensive and defensive line because they have a lot of guys on both sides of that. So really, you bring up an interesting point because if you're truly going to play the best 5, like, is AVT best suited at guard? Absolutely. But when you're talking about playing the best 5, do they kick him to tackle because he's a better option than both Mekhi and Max Mitchell? And then you play either a McGovern or a Tippmann at guard and start the other at center. Like, those are very interesting conversations to have. And it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out over the course of this summer. But I would think that from everything I've heard, and I'm not an offensive line guru, but from everything I've heard, AVT is great, obviously across the board, but has serious all pro and Hall of Fame potential at guard. So you want to keep him where he's best. However, they may have different thoughts. Who's the new offensive line coach? The guy from Tennessee? Why can't I think of his name?
Isn't it Keith Carter?
Keith Carter, yes. Thank you. He may have different ideas, but what I will say though is I do feel much better about their depth this year than I did going into last year. Last year, obviously, it was Tetris, it was musical chairs at that position. This year, if it ends up being that, I do feel better about the depth that they do have.
Yeah, totally. Before we move into our next topic, a tweet just came across my desk. Did you? I don't know if you've seen this. It came out about an hour ago, but Aaron Rodgers' cap hit in 2023 for the Packers is $40.3 million, and for the Jets, $8.8 million. Think about that. Isn't that crazy? How is that even possible?
I don't know, but I love how down bad the Packers fans are about this. Like, you lost. Like, you took an L. Just take it and move on. That's it.
Listen. I get it. They have an emotional attachment to the guy. The fans aren't the reason he wanted to leave. It was the front office.
Exactly.
He loves the fans. He loves the city. It's just they weren't building around him the way he wanted. And it seems like the Jets, with this restructure, have said to him, we're going to do whatever we can to maximize this roster and this window. And it's such Tom Brady and Tampa vibes. I hate saying that because I hate Tom Brady, but it just feels like it. And I'm sure you saw the Jeff Darlington tweet calling him Big Apple Aaron, which I think I'm surprised nobody's coined and made a shirt.
I know. I kind of like that. I didn't see that.
I know. I think Joe and Connor have to add that to the Badlands merch. So we'll talk about that later.
And but, I mean, you also got guys like Jordan Whitehead that came from Tampa that are coming here and saying like this has Tom Brady vibes when he got to Tampa Bay. Like that's so it's good to see, man. I think this is it's going to be a fun season. It's really fun to have true expectations, and we are truly looking forward to September and not with tempered expectations. Like, obviously, we're all reserved because we're Jets fans, is what we're going to do. But this feels like this could be a year where we could really make a run, and it could be it. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, listen.
Could be. We could be talking in February.
Listen.
Celebrating a Super Bowl. I'm saying it's on the table. It is a realistic possibility.
I'll just say this. I'm not worried about the going for September anymore. That's definitely a nice monkey that's gotten off the back.
I would hope so, man. Jesus.
I mean, listen, the bar was so low, and the bar is certainly been raised, thankfully.
And that's the other, like, I don't want to digress too much here, but like the Jets checked off a lot of boxes last year. Like at TOJ at Badlands, like we had a lot of those things. September wins, divisional wins, like all that stuff. And the Jets did it last year, and they did it and went 7-10, and we're in the thick of a playoff race with Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco. Right?
Yep.
Credit to the team, credit to the coaching staff. Like nothing happens in a vacuum, but realistically look at it and say, what's the record in those 10 losses if Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback? Is it at worst 5-5, 6-4, 7-3? So then how do you know what I mean? Like, how does that translate? So for every other fan out there that wants to knock us down, like when we're on a little bit of a high here, like forget it. Like, come on. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers was on this roster last year, I don't care which Aaron Rodgers. I don't care if it was 22, 20, 21. I don't care if it was his third year in the league when he first started. Like,
we're winning 10 games.
At least.
Yeah.
That's so of course we're excited. Like, not again, there's no guarantees. Who knows what happens? The defense could regress. Like, who knows? But having Aaron Rodgers on this team changes everything.
It gives you a shot, and that's all we've been asking for as fans, basically dating back to 2011 when they were a quarter away from going to the Super Bowl, and we finally have a chance. Whether it works out remains to be seen, but the Jets are going to be able to beat any team on their schedule. That's never been the case since 2010 where I felt that confident.
And the thing is, like, the game has changed since then, right? So even, a Jets team with the number one defense and number one rushing attack with Mark Sanchez, who was a mediocre second-year QB in that time, could go toe-to-toe with Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. Well, the game has changed where it's so quarterback-centric right now, but exactly to your point, like, that's how you feel. You feel that they could go into Arrowhead and steal a game in January to beat Patrick Mahomes simply because you have Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers goes in and plays out of his mind like he's been known to do, you can pull that off. And that's all you ask for is a shot. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. Like, it's not easy, right? But all you ask for is a shot. And with Aaron Rodgers, that's it. That's what you get. You get a shot. There's a chance.
Yeah. Listen, the whole thing from Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. There's definitely a chance. And listen, a lot of football, you got to have all the games to be played. You got to get through camp. I mean, I think one thing you touched on, which is interesting, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is just the defense. Like, they were very lucky in terms of health last year, and that somebody is going to go down. I don't want to wish that, but like, it's just the nature of football, and they were very fortunate with that luck. But at the same vein, they weren't turning the ball over, so that's going to bounce the other way, especially with the way teams are going to be playing against the Jets. Think about it; they never felt threatened by the passing game last year. I mean, they didn't. Probably felt more threatened when Mike White or Joe Flacco was playing. But when Zach was playing, they were like, okay, we could do whatever we want because they can't score enough points, especially in the red zone. But now with Rodgers, teams actually feel like they need to air it out a little bit more and take more chances, which is going to give the corners and the safeties more opportunities to make a play and hopefully force some turnovers. And you would think with all the depth in the rotation of the defensive line that they'll force some fumbles and some of these sacks. And I do think the sack total is going to go up by a lot.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think this has been something that we've talked about quite a bit. I think it's one of my biggest fears is a serious regression from the defense, because it was alarming how much other teams down the stretch last year dinked and dunked in the middle of the field simply because they knew they could. And that was obviously a weakness in the Jets defense. But then the thing that you have to combat that with is exactly to your point, which is how much did the lack of offense and offensive firepower that the Jets had contribute to that and to the game plans that these other teams came through with, right? So how much does Aaron Rodgers change that? Like, it's easy to hold on to a lead and dink and dunk to your tight ends when the Jaguars are up 16-3 and there's no threat of the Jets, scoring a touchdown with Chris Streveler. Is that the same when, you're down 17-7 and Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback on the other side of the ball, right? Like, then exactly what you said is, you're going to have to take more shots. You can't dink and dunk your way to that. So, but definitely the injury thing is something. I mean, that's nature of the beast. That's something that's going to happen. The Jets were extremely healthy last year on the defensive side of the ball. So that's unfortunately, we've already seen it now with Chuck Clark, who I think was going to be a big part of this defense.
Yeah, and that's a great segue because I want to talk about a guy that's getting a lot of hype in camp, and that man is Tony Adams. So one of the things that I saw on Saturday, and I know a lot of people on the beat have been saying this, I know you felt this way as well, is Tony Adams is standing out, and in a good way because he's an undrafted free agent last year. He made the team during the final cut day, which was impressive because, not that many guys who are undrafted in their rookie season typically make rosters. They may make a practice squad, they may get claimed, but the guy came in, he was signed, and he made the team. And he wasn't expected to be a starter this year. It was most probably going to be a depth piece. And you would imagine if there was injury, he was going to be in line to start. But he's playing his way into the job, even with the signing of Adrian Amos. It seems like they feel comfortable with Tony Adams being that guy. I know he picked off Rodgers, I think, yesterday in practice. So he's clearly capable of making plays. What do you think about Tony Adams so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Joe kind of says it best where he's like, you really can't say Tony Adams' name without also coupling that with the coaching staff really loves this guy. And
They
that's what
do.
it seems like. And what I will say is that I don't think you sign Adrian Amos to ride the pine, but at the same time, like I think there's ways to get them both on the field, but it seems like Tony Adams is really impressing. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a very clear path for him to start, especially with I think Salah made a comment either today or yesterday in his presser, kind of alluding to that, like, yeah, like the cat's out of the bag or something like that, where I just think the defensive coaches really like this guy. So I think he's going to get the chance to start. But I also think they'll also find a way for Adrian Amos to get on the field. And the one overarching thing that I will say is even after the Chuck Clark injury, I feel better about this safety group than I did last year. Like the coupling
100%.
Of Adams and Amos, as opposed to just LaMarcus Joyner and Ashton Davis, who, I mean, that guy has made a Teflon. I don't know how the hell he's still going to do it, but we know that come September, we're going to be. Yeah, but even that, like, anyway, I just feel better about I feel better about this group as a better this year than I did last year about the safety group. I think that was my biggest concern last year was how Joyner was going to hold up. He made some plays. He got some picks early on. I think they faltered down the stretch with him. I think Whitehead didn't really play up to snuff either, but I think getting him a better running mate will obviously lead to an improved year from him. So it's a non-answer. I think Adams has a clear path. I think that's probably the more likely outcome, but at this point, I think we're still unsure.
Listen, when it comes to the defense, I trust Salah and I trust Ulbrich to develop these players. I know that they were the butt of jokes. I think before, I guess it was like the Pittsburgh game or Cincinnati game when they, everything kind of like clicked for the defense. But they seem to have a good eye in terms of who are the right guys for this defense, who are the guys that they could develop. And I love that Tony Adams is young, man. He's, 24 years old? And who knows? He could just be that guy that we were hoping, Chuck Clark could be. And, I don't know if Chuck Clark is under contract for next year. I believe he might be. But, if Tony Adams plays his way into this job and that's what his job to keep, who knows? They can have a lot more flexibility with what they want to do from a cap perspective. They obviously want to make some final additions, I think, with the $16 million that they have after the Rodgers restructure. But what's so bad about having a safety on the cheap, especially considering there's always a discourse about paying safeties anyway. And, they're paying Whitehead a decent amount of money. I mean, it's not like Jamal Adams money, but, it's good to have a guy on a minimum contract.
I mean, we talked about him before the show. Like, it could end up being a guy like Kerry Rhodes, who had no expectation. I mean, the guy was a 4th-round pick out of Louisville, came out in year 1, was a starter, and was probably one of the Jets' best safeties ever. I mean, him, listen, as much shade as we throw at Jamal Adams, like, he was very good, but Kerry Rhodes is in that conversation. Like, he was a very good safety from 05 to 09, like a very good one. I mean, he didn't do many things poorly. He was a ball hawk. He played the run well. He could tackle. Like, so when you're talking about guys like that, I mean, it's unexpected. He's an undrafted free agent, but if he comes out and shows up and earns a starting spot, hey, more power to him and even better for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see. I want to transition to the running back spot because there's been a lot of buzz about, when's Breece coming back? Are they going to make an addition to the room? But we're going to start with Breece because, he's been the guy that everyone's been so giddy about because it was like the one that got away because he really started to, turn on the Jets, if you will, and become a guy that we all were just like, salivating about, especially, in the Packer game when he had that crazy run where he basically ran in front of their entire defense. And he had that amazing run against the Broncos before he ultimately got hurt later in that game. But when do you think he's going to be activated off the PUP list? I'm hoping soon because you've heard all the good reviews. You've heard he's been running really fast when they track him on the GPS. He's working off to the side. I was watching him. He looked good, when he was doing all the drills on the side of the field. But do we think he's going to come back after the Hall of Fame game? Do we think it's going to maybe be for the, the final preseason game to get him some reps so he knows what it's like to be in a game again? When do you think he's going to come back?
It's so hard to say with these things. I would, my gut instinct says, maybe like early to mid-August, they bring him back off the PUP list and he gets it back into practices. Ultimately, I think the concern is he ready for week 1? And I think he will be. I think he will be on a limited basis though, right? Where he's not ramping up until probably weeks 3, 4, or 5, something around there, late September, early October. But hey, like I think we mentioned this before, like maybe he's a freak like Adrian Peterson, and maybe his body just heals faster and he could get back to form and be totally fine. But I don't think this lingers into the season. I think you'll probably, maybe after week 1 of the preseason, he gets back off the pup. He's back practicing, and then they kind of ramp him up as we get ready for week 1. But you're still probably going to see him in a limited role. And I think, we'll see how the rest of the running back room, that's another one that's going to be very interesting. They got a lot of horses there and a lot of guys that have kind of different stories with how their 2022s played out and what their story is for 23. So what are your thoughts on Breece, though? What do you think, man?
So I think he'll probably get activated. I think probably mid-August, maybe like around the first real preseason game, not the Hall of Fame game. But again, they could be extra cautious with him. And I don't know. I mean, I like Michael Carter, getting more reps. I know we were all disappointed with his year 2, but it seems like things are trending well for him. He spoke, yesterday to the media, and I felt like he handled himself really well. He admitted that, the drafting of Breece Hall definitely, affected him. But then when Breece went down and they signed James Robinson or traded for James Robinson, he was really kind of taken aback. And I think he was playing, a little bit like upset. And I think now he understands that he has a role in this football team and he wants to seize every opportunity that he gets. And I'm just excited to see, because I think they're going to rotate all the backs. I mean, obviously, if Breece is like, they feel like he's like 100% or, as close as he can be to 100%, he's going to get a bulk of the work. But like, they do have a nice stable with, Bam, who showed us something last year, and obviously Izzy, who everyone's super excited about. I mean, it seems like he was like potentially a steal in the 5th round. But I think mid-August is probably where we're going to net out with this.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess what I like about the running back room is that it is diverse, right? Like I think Breece is an animal in on his own. Like he's just, nobody is that fast and that big. And the way that he can just get to the outside and beat everybody, I think is insane. Michael Carter has kind of that short area quickness and is really good in the passing game. I think Bam is a little more similar to Breece, but obviously not to that level. And I think Izzy just has that breakaway speed. So I like the fact that the running back room is not really redundant and that they have kind of multiple facets to that positional group. But again, like, are they going to keep 4? Who knows? Like, how is that going to play out? We don't know. It's going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting when cut day comes, and we're always excited to see who ends up making the team, who gets stashed on the practice squad, especially now with the way the practice squad works, because you could have guys who normally wouldn't be eligible because I think it's an amount of years of service, but you could actually stash veterans. Yep. But it's definitely going to be interesting, and that's going to lead us to another running back who's been very much in the news for the Jets, and that's Dalvin Cook. Especially when you see the $16 million that the Jets have just cleared with this Rodgers restructure. Like, is he on the way? He's been saying that the Miami's never offered him a contract. He's been, kind of like teasing Jet fans by like following people on Twitter who have to do with the Jets, whether it's Woody Johnson or, some of the other players, and liking stuff that has to do with the Jets. But he's doing the same thing for the Dolphins. Do you think he's actually going to come here? I don't really think so, but what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, my thoughts are 50-50. Like, clearly I'm not one of those guys that's like, and I don't want to be. Like, if you remember, I hate to equate it to this, but like we were all happy with like Bryce Hall, and we were like, why do we need another corner? Like, Bryce Hall is great, right? So like I guess I'm equating it to that, because it's like, listen, if you get a chance to add a guy with this kind of talent level, like figure it out and fine, do it. Like, I get it if you have if you're refraining from wanting to sign the guy because of the troubled off the field issue, like I understand that, and that doesn't sit well with me either. That's that was the hesitation about Tyreek Hill as well. But from a talent level perspective and just adding fuel to this team, like, why wouldn't you want to add that? So I'm still probably 50-50. I do think it comes down to the Jets and the Dolphins with the edge going to Miami. But all this stuff we hear is that Miami really isn't wanting to pony up the dough because they know that he wants them. So, I really don't know. I think it's 50-50. I wouldn't be shocked either way. But to anyone that's hesitant about adding him because of anything but on field, like, I don't. If he's available, put him on the team. He adds something to the running back room.
I don't think that anyone is, anti-bringing Dalvin Cook in here. As, from an on-field perspective, I could understand the off-field stuff because, like, we don't know what's going on with that. And if anything of that nature is true regarding him, I would stay away from him as quickly as you can. But like, having a guy of his caliber, whether he's not in his prime anymore, he's clearly taken a beating, even though he made 4 straight Pro Bowls and was still really good last year, despite the fact that the Vikings were willing to move off him. But I think it was more for salary purposes, and as you're seeing with the running back market, because that's been a disaster in its own right. But we don't have to talk about that because it's beyond the Jets right now. But to me, when you have the ability to add, more skill position players, whether it's pass catchers, running backs, you do it. And he has the ability to be a guy who can catch passes out of the backfield. And he's been awesome, through his first 5 years of his career. So for me, it's a no-brainer. The question is he asking for too much money? Is he using us as leverage? I don't know. I mean, there was that little rumor on Twitter from Craig Carton saying that he's meeting with the Jets on Sunday. Who knows if that's true? I don't know. Craig has definitely been a little more hit and miss when it comes to, his sources, I guess.
Definitely more miss than hit, yeah.
He kept saying for a long time that the Jets were never getting Aaron Rodgers.
And then he was going to San Fran and all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, it's from a football perspective, you got to do this if you can. And especially if the price is right. Now you have $16 million in cap space. Who knows? Maybe they swing a trade that we don't know about for a player in another position. I don't know. But it's a no-brainer to me. He's awesome, and I'd love to have him on this team.
Yeah. And I mean, with the salary cap, what it is and the space they have, you go back, the OBJ conversation we were having over the summer. I get it. The Ravens overpaid, but shit, it's not my money. I mean, you add OBJ to that mix of receivers, it makes your team completely different. It adds obviously depth, it adds talent. So the same conversation goes with Dalvin Cook. So if he's willing to come here and the money is, on the, I don't know, close to reasonable, why wouldn't you do it? Is he listen, outside of Breece Hall, outside of a healthy Breece Hall, is Dalvin Cook the best running back in the Jets locker room?
Yes. I would say, yeah.
So you add him. That's if you have the chance to, you add him. He makes your team better. And I think that's a simple explanation.
Agreed. So where we stand on this from a football perspective. We want to make that very clear.
Exactly.
If any of that legal stuff ever gets shed to light and there's more details, no, I don't want anything to do with the guy.
The alleged activity we don't condone here on TOJ Live.
Yes, we do not condone that behavior. Here's a fun one that I think a few people might be like, why are you guys talking about this? But the Jets don't have a real backup quarterback that we know of. But Zach is actually, believe it or not, and I will say from what I saw on Saturday, he looked pretty good and the reports have been pretty good. But when it comes to him, it's a lot different when, it's practice versus when the bullets are flying in an actual game. But they signed Tim Boyle. They have Strevler. Teddy Bridgewater is out there. You never know. He could potentially be available if they wanted to sign him as a backup. If Zach continues to have a good camp and a team is willing to give you, I don't know, this is a crazy thing, and I'm probably going to get shit for this, but what if a team offered the Jets a 3rd round pick? I don't think that this would happen. I'm not saying it would happen, but if in the event that it did, you got to do that. I mean, this guy, I don't care that they took him the 2nd pick. His value is nothing right now. It doesn't matter. And I'm sure they're going to, pump out those narratives, but should they trade him? I mean, Tim Boyle being the backup is just as scary as Zach, but he's actually started. It's not like he's a complete unknown. And Zach, from what we've seen, just doesn't know how to read a defense or, complete a short pass. But it's something to have to consider if someone's willing to give us a 3rd round pick. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. And so in your scenario, if someone's willing to give up a 3rd round pick for Zach, you absolutely 100% pull the trigger. There's no questions asked. In a real world, right? If the compensation is less than that, if he looks good in preseason and you get a 5th or a 6th or whatever, I think what the compensation is obviously gives you the answer, but also what the next backup plan is. Do you feel confident with Tim Boyle being number 2, or do you go out and get a Teddy Bridgewater or someone else that has starting experience, not a Flacco? We can't have that again. But yeah, I mean, listen, if the compensation is more than you would expect, if it's a 4 or a 3, I think you absolutely jump all over that. I think kind of Zach could end up being a feel-good story here, but I do just really think in my heart of hearts, this is nice. It's all well and good. He gets to learn from his hero and all this, but in reality, I don't think there's a long-term future here for Zach Wilson and the Jets. I think if he's going to succeed, it's going to have to be with a fresh start somewhere else.
Yeah, and Boomer Esiason was actually saying this on Boomer and Gio. I think it was yesterday. It might have been today. I'm not sure. That there is a path for him to having that Geno-like resurgence. You never know. I mean,
yeah,
if he went to a guy like Kyle Shanahan and apparently they loved him, they would have taken him if we didn't. Like,
Mhm.
do you think his career trajectory would be a lot different? I personally do think it would be. I think he
Probably.
would have looked a lot better because Kyle can make like any quarterback look good. I mean, look at Brock
Yeah.
Purdy, and maybe Brock Purdy's legitimately good. He was like, he was a solid college quarterback. He actually had some higher, upside from a draft perspective buzz earlier in his career. And then he had a down year that made him slip to Mr. Irrelevant. But like, I don't know, man. If someone's willing to offer something more, like, I guess a 5th-round pick, it's like you kind of have to think about it. He's like, is this really worth it? Do you want to maybe just hold out hope that he could develop from post Rodgers? But
Yeah.
if someone's offering a 3rd-round pick, I would take that.
You
and
take it in a
run.
heartbeat. Absolutely. No question.
But yeah. So we're doing some closing thoughts, and this has been awesome. We have our new format. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. We appreciate everybody's tuned in this week, and we'll be going all the way through the season. We'll have plenty of guests. How excited are you for Hard Knocks? I know that there's been a mixed discourse about it, but I'm so excited. I don't care what anybody says.
Not me. I mean, any more access that I can get to the NFL, let alone my favorite team, obviously I'm going to take it. I mean, the 2010 season of Hard Knocks was just so incredible. And I can't I think back to some of that stuff and let's go get a goddamn snack and all that stuff. And then I do remember too, like that was obviously the year that Revis held out. And I think the last part of the last episode was Rex. Like this guy comes up to practice and he's in the huddle and he's like, oh, look at this, probably some, slap thick special teamer or whatever. And turns out it's Revis. Like it was just incredible. So I'm obviously a big fan of Hard Knocks. And especially when it's my team. So I love it. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be awesome. I think that the Jets do an incredible job with One Jets Drive as well. I think their social media team is just best in class, to be honest with you. So yeah, I am really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this season, and it's going to be awesome. And I'll kick it back over to you with Hard Knocks, but I do also want to touch on the retro jersey release and how awesome.
Oh yes. Well.
So go ahead.
There's so much to talk about. That I completely botched that right now. But yes, I'm excited for Hard Knocks and the retro jerseys, man, they got it right. And the fact, not even just that, they're putting the logos back on the field, which is even better. Incredible. Because having to see the stupid NFL logo in the middle of the stadium was the dumbest thing ever. I never understood it. I get it. They shared a stadium, but like the Chargers and the Rams share a stadium, and they didn't do that.
Yep.
Dude, these jerseys, and I thought about wearing it for the show because mine came in a day, and everyone's like, do you live next to the distribution center? Do you work for Nike shop? Do you know Woody Johnson personally? All the responses to my tweet were hilarious. I appreciate all of you for giving me some comedic relief yesterday. They are as beautiful as you are hoping for. So when you get yours, you will all be super excited. I love it. I will be wearing it to opening night when they play Buffalo on Monday night. It's amazing. I'm getting crap from people like, why would you buy the Garrett Wilson jersey? He's changing his number next year, blah, blah, blah.
Because it's Garrett.
Listen. Yes, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, number 7 is my favorite number. So when Gino was wearing that, I was pumped because I'm also a West Virginia alumni. He was there when I was there. It didn't work out, whatever. But 17, I like any number that has 7 in it. So I love that. And we also don't know if they're going to re-release them next year. They may come out with different jerseys that I could get a Garrett Wilson 5 in that. The fact this could be like a 1-year release. I don't know. So just having it is amazing. So I don't care what anybody has to say.
I'm with you, dude. You get what you want, and that Garrett is clean. I love it. They got it right. I really hope that they go back in 2024 to some variation of that 80s, early 90s jersey. I think it was the best one. I think, when I think back on it, I really loved when Parcells changed the uniforms. I just felt like he had to do it just to kind of clean the losing off of them and switch it up.
Yes.
However, now when you look back on it, you're like, man, those jerseys were so sick, especially when you kind of get back to the Kelly Green and so I'm currently in a little bit of a battle here in the Russo household. My wife, I really want to get a Sauce one. My wife thinks I'm cursed. Every jersey that I buy of a current player ends up being not very good. They get traded away. I mean, that's just how that's how sports work, but it's how the NFL works. I got some duds in the closet, we'll say, but I may go Sauce. I may go the Revis looks pretty nice too. So that would be an easy one to do, but I got to get at least one of them because they're pristine.
Dude, just get a Sauce. I don't even know. This isn't even up for debate. I bought a Sauce green last year and I was telling myself, I'm trying not to buy jerseys because like you said, I've gotten burned. My sister got me a Jamal Adams in February 2020 before they traded him for my birthday. Had the tags on, never wore it. I had 2 Sam Darnolds. I had the new one in white, and then I had his rookie season green. Dude,
I know.
who cares, man?
I bought my kids just T-shirts. Jack had an Elijah Moore, and Grace got a Zach Wilson. And it's like, oh boy, those are even. It's like, wow, what am I gonna do here? And like, I mean, I want to get Jack one, but at the same time, like, man, I don't know if I want to curse these kids.
Vibes are different these days. Vibes are different these days.
My wife Stephanie, she even says, she's like, Sauce is really good, Steve. Do you want him to have a bad year? And I'm like, she thinks that I'm gonna curse him. What am I supposed to do?
As if there are a million other Jet fans that haven't bought the jersey already. You know
what?
Like
you're speaking like you can't do
like
that. You're using logic. That's not what we're talking about here. This is juju. This is superstition. That's what sports is about.
I definitely am superstitious.
I mean,
like if something I'm wearing is working, I will wear it on game day. So if the Garrett jersey, they don't win that, I'm not going to wear it
until exactly until you reset and you cycle through a couple other shirts or something. Yeah, but I got a Sanchez, I got a Sean Green, I got a Santonio. I obviously had a Keyshawn back in the day.
Yeah.
The best one I probably had was Mo Lewis. I got him in like 4th grade, and he was he retired a Jet. Like that was fantastic, So
not many guys retire a Jet.
Not many guys, yeah. So that was
hope that some of these guys do.
But anyway, I think Woody and the Jets got it right. It goes back to what I said in the opening. I think everything they've done, it's like they're walking on water. It feels like everything they touch is gold right now. So ride that as long as you can.
Of course. Any closing thoughts before we wrap our first episode of season 3, which is crazy to think?
I know, man. Good to be back and better than ever. I feel good. It was fun to get out, fun to get back with you and do the show, man. I'm excited. It's obviously a really good time here, so it's good to just chop it up with you.
Yeah, it's been great. If you have not, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which has changed since the last time you probably heard us. It's youtube.com/@BadlandsTOJ. So not only are you going to be getting our show, you'll be getting some snippets from Badlands if you're not actually somebody who's subscribed on Patreon, which is awesome. You'll also be just getting random other nuggets from, the War Room feed that Joe and Connor are putting together. Even Dan, who's been awesome with Buck the Trend. Highly recommend to listen to that. Also, make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon, wherever your podcasts. Turn on the Jets Live. That's all you have to search. And also now with our new feature, because we have a new streaming service, you will be able to watch this on Twitter as well. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to see this live, and you don't even have to go on another platform. It's pretty cool. So we appreciate everybody who's tuned in, and we look forward to talking to you guys next week.